All right, there we are. We're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coffee, Kegs, and Kriegsspiel. I am Marshall, and I am here to talk to you all about a really cool battle that we had yesterday using the new 15-state system. I am resetting all of the blocks and everything so that I can recreate this really cool battle for you. Although mostly I'm going to draw everything out. It would be nice to show you some of the blocks and how those work and how the 15-state system works overall. So let's do that. I just wanted to reverse these so they're kind of facing the right way. A little OCD thing there. All right, and there we have it. So just so you know, we used a new system that we are developing called the 15-state system. And the entire purpose of the 15-state system is to keep track of supplies right here on the blocks. And we want supply to matter. And this is a problem that we've had for the past year and in Kriegsspiel in general, because for the most part, players like to take and just smash their blocks together. They play without any regard to casualties, without really any regard to supply state or anything like that. So making supplies consequential is been one of the challenges that we've been trying to wrangle with for the past year or so. And I think what we've done is we've come up with a solution, and the 15-state solution makes the supply matter. And that changes the ebb and the flow of the game to make the battles feel more natural. So here's what happens in this particular scenario. Let's see here. Here is the scenario. Let's pull up. Okay, so this here takes place in Russia. We say it's, Napoleon's campaign in Russia. We've got French and Russian forces, and they are both expected to take control of a bridge here and a bridge here. So both sides are vying to take control of these bridges. The French are coming in from the south and the Russians from the northwest. Now you may say, wait a minute, this map doesn't look period authentic, and you're right, it's not. It's probably pulled from another war game or something. Nonetheless, the scale of the map is pretty close, and it does serve our purposes just fine. It has kind of everything we need. So we went ahead and used it anyway. And I have to say, Russia in World War II, at least in the rural areas, probably wasn't that much changed from what it was in the Napoleonic era, although the change was finally starting for the Russian people, which is fantastic. It's great. They deserve modernization, right? But here we have it. Let's see here. So the Russian forces had sort of an easier go in that their approach to the objective, I felt, was a little shorter. They were able to come through here and seize this objective rather quickly. And over here, I think it may have been around here, they split their forces and came down this way towards that objective. That was the plan. And then they were going to come down here this way, roughly more or less, and take that objective. So that was the Russian plan. The French plan, on the other hand, involved coming up this way. Oh, I need my pin, don't I? Coming up this way, then diverging here and going this way and this way to the bridge, to the village. So you can tell the French clearly had the tougher assignment, which involved splitting up only once they got to the village here, and with one force going towards the main bridge and the other force going towards the smaller bridge in the north. Well, the Russians, of course, did get there first, and the 4th Brigade, and really these are brigades, not divisions. The 4th Brigade more or less got here roughly first. And they got there as the French came up and were right about here. And a decision was made by the French commander to go ahead and push across this creek. And this is kind of the first error I think that the French commander made. But I really struggle with calling it an error because it was a really tough decision, and the fog of war certainly played a part in the calculus. But what happened was the Russians were here on the heights. The French were coming in, they were marching in, so let's put them in their little marching column, right? They're marching in, and the French commander sees the Russians on the heights, and he chose to go ahead and cross the river. And this was a pretty bold decision on his part because he put himself into a situation where the enemy occupies the high ground and he's going to have an uphill fight to get to them. The enemy also had artillery, I think it was here on the flank, and that was able to go into operation against him, whereas his guns had difficulty training uphill to go into action. He managed to deploy, however, and just about as he deployed, I think he realized, hey, the artillery's going to have a hard time. It's going to be quite a struggle. Where is his battery? Here it is. Let's go ahead and move. And his decision, which actually turned out to be a pretty decent one, was to move over here like this and deploy in a line like this. At the same time, the Russian forces, sensing opportunity, decided to attack, particularly down this way. And so the end result is some of his units got in line here. He had a battery that was here, and then he had a couple other units that were a little more strung out over here. They weren't in such close order. Whereas the Russians went in with 3 units in the lead and 1 behind in reserve, and then their artillery operating here like this. The interesting thing that happened here was the French were able to have local superiority against the Russians. They were able to fire, especially on this artillery battery, and they really gave them a hard time. They also fired here on these units and inflicted some losses. What ends up happening is the French commander, sensing an advantage, pushes uphill. He pushes so quickly and so hard that his artillery is masked and is unable to continue firing. And what ends up happening is his units kind of take a beating in the process, but not before they put the enemy artillery to flight. Okay, so the French are suffering badly. They also have their other unit back here. And here's where a pretty important decision is made. First of all, 2 of these infantry battalions, or half battalions really, so a battalion of Russian infantry was sent to the other side of the river. Actually, it was left here. And they finally go into action to offer support to this brigade, to the 4th Brigade. Meanwhile, the rest of the 3rd Brigade makes its way here to defend this crossing up here, and they deploy their battery here to fire across the river and support the Russian attack here. So you have a situation now where I think one of those trains is over there. You have a situation where I think the French are in a really bad situation. And you might be saying, well, where is the other French force? Well, he's making his way through the village and crossing, or getting ready to cross, over here. So the French commander is here, and he is deciding that he wants to cross here, but with artillery support. So that's what he's setting up to do. And these troops are in column here, more or less. Not really, they're actually more like this. And there we go. We'll just put those units there for the moment. So here's the situation. Now, this is where the 15 state system really works. And real quick, I want to say good morning to Achilles, who just said hello. Good to have you on here. The units here were banging away at each other, and what ends up happening, and what does happen under the 15 state system, is the turn increments are 5 minutes, which allows you to march in road column across one of our squares. That's how we have the maps divided up into these grid squares. And each grid square is worth 5 minutes of marching on a road in column under good conditions on flat terrain. That's the distance you can cover. Any variation on that decreases your movement by an appropriate measure, whatever. That's about, I think, 400 paces or something. And that's 5 minutes of movement. And I could be wrong about that. But nonetheless, actually, I think I am wrong about that being 400 paces. I think it's a lot more than 400 paces. But in any case, the units are firing back and forth at each other, and they are reducing their ammo state as they go. So you see these pips on here? When I go to the next state, it reduces. And this is why we call it the 15 state system, because there are 15 possible states. And as these units fire at each other, they go down a state. And if a unit takes a hit like this one here in the middle does, he actually goes down to the next level. And then, he goes down another state from there. So he's down like this. And what ended up happening is this unit did take some hits and was replaced in line. And these replacement maneuvers, these pass-through as we call them, can be done without penalty under this system. But what ends up happening is these units end up at the fourth state, meaning they only have 1 pip of ammunition remaining. The French units exhaust all of their ammunition until they have nothing left. They may have had like 1 pip over here or something like that, but basically it is greatly reduced. And so they are forced to pull back and resupply. They bring ammo wagons across, and they pull these units back as well. Now, in this crucial moment, had the Russians decided, we're going to attack, we're going to press our advantage, and in fact they do over here. That's right, they had another ammo wagon train brought up here. They were resupplying this unit, and it was attacked while resupplying, and of course they can't fire back, which will cause this unit to break en route. So this unit will actually retreat. But over here, had the Russians pressed their attack, they would have done the same thing to these units, but they didn't. Instead, they themselves pull back with 5 minutes worth of ammunition remaining, and they begin to resupply as well. And that's where the 15 state system matters, because you can't just push and bulldoze and plow your way across the field. It gives these men a rest or a break, which is what they would have had to have historically in real life. Now, how does this system work further? Each one of these is worth 4 pips on a block. So you see I've reduced it. We've consumed one of the wagons. We can now return him to full ammo state, which is 4 pips on the block. If we want to fill out this block, takes another wagon, go down here, and he is now full for ammo. And we can do 1 pip across 4 blocks or whatever it may be. Okay, and then of course we round. If in this case he only needs 3 pips, so we will go down to this state and we will fill him up here, but we remove the wagon because we rounded it. If we can spin that extra pip somewhere, we do. If not, we don't. Conversely, if you have a situation where a unit is kind of like at this state here, no, we're going to put him at that state, we would just, and we want to pull off the wagon, we'll probably just bump it up. More or less, it kind of works out in the end. We don't want to do micro accounting here, where we're doing microtransactions like this. And the thing that prevents a microtransaction like that, because theoretically you're like, well, they could all go to state 2, couldn't they? And then refill for free off the wagon. Well, they couldn't because that's 3 pips. That would cost the whole wagon. But let's say they were like this, right? And well, hey, we round up, right? Well, the thing that prevents that abuse from happening is the turn on which you resupply, you cannot fire. So again, it gives the other side a breather and a break as well. Gives them an opportunity to disengage and fall back. And it again, it forces decisions on both sides. Both sides are grappling with the same limitations and have to make tough decisions. And thank you, Achilles, for that. He says it forced an interesting decision point for both sides. Achilles watched the battle yesterday, and yes, it did. The Russians had the opportunity to crush the French. They held back on this side. They did attack over here. They put one French half battalion to flight, but the others were basically allowed to escape. And then they did cross back across the river. That was the final decision made by the commander. And what we don't know is how this would have wound up, although we think it would have been a Russian victory over here, simply because French forces were being sent by the 2nd Division into action over here, and so we can anticipate they would have come in to support their brethren there. And the French may have had some numerical superiority, but they had been beaten up pretty badly. Their units had taken a lot of disruption hits for sure. So it would have taken them time to recover. So they would have been throwing a weaker level of dice against the Russians. So it's really kind of anyone's game. Over here, the battle seemed to go pretty well for the French. They were throwing a lot of hits on these units and even reduced one of the blocks down to one of its. I don't know if it was the minimum state or the next one up like this, but they had scored some hits on this block here. I think it was with the artillery even, and the artillery may have been firing in that position. But again, they were doing a lot of damage here. I don't know that the French would have held it, however. Even if they had taken this crossing at the end of the battle, it's hard to say that they would have held it for the next 24-hour period or whatever. What ultimately becomes of this skirmish is the French do fall back, and it would really depend on the situation that's going on around them. If the main French army is coming up this way, which is arguable because that's probably why they're sent to secure the bridges, then maybe the French have some sort of a tactical victory here. On the other hand, if the Russian army is coming through, conversely, the Russians definitely have a tactical victory here because they have these crossings. Of course, we don't fill that part of the scenario out. It's kind of outside the context of this particular action, so it's really hard to say which side actually won and which side actually lost. From a Kriegsspiel perspective, however, I want to say that the Russian, well, both forces made really good decisions. I just saw a question here I want to answer, and then I'll kind of give my overall take here. Achilles says, had the Russians assaulted and overrun the French position, could they have then resupplied from the French supply wagons? All right, so one of the things is we don't keep track of weapon types, just because that's a whole nother level of minutia. If the Russian weapons are of the same caliber as the French weapons, then if we knew that, we would say yes, everything's compatible and they can resupply. On the other hand, we don't know what that would have been like historically. So all things being equal, if the weapon types are considered compatible, then the answer is yes. If not, then the answer is no. We've never really had this situation come up, however, and I think it's a very interesting question, and it's probably one that we'll have to grapple with using this particular system. In the past, supply units have been captured and we've just carted them off and say, okay, that's a kind of a +1 for the side that captures them or destroys them. Um, we have never really figured, well, you can resupply off the wagons though, because we have never really played a game where supply matters that much. So that's a very interesting question. And again, the answer is going to come down to what would it have been historically? Because we do want to answer these questions historically. We don't want everything to be gamey where it's like, well, hey, you took their supplies, now you can use them. Well, not necessarily so, right? The charge of powder, the caliber of the ball, all sorts of things kind of play into it. And if we have somebody who has some historical knowledge, who were to weigh in on this and say yes, both used a 59 caliber musket, let's say, whatever that would be, or a 69 caliber musket, then yeah, we'd consider it compatible, but otherwise probably not. And again, it'll take some historical research to answer that properly. But a great question, a really cool question. All right, so here we are. My take on the battle. It's very easy for us, I think, to criticize the French. And I'm going to load the final game state if I can, just so we can see it. I don't know if this is it. Nope, this is me playing with blocks. Oh no, we don't have the final state Dewey saved. Oh well. Let me see if this is it here. No, we don't have it at all. Um, I wonder if I might be able to go like all the way back to the beginning of, because I loaded this from a. This is annoying, I'm sorry, but if I go all the way back to state 1, it should allow me to see. No, it didn't. I'm sorry, guys. I put you through all that back clicking. Um, in any case, um, it's very easy, I think, to criticize the French for coming up here and encountering the Russians on poor ground, on making a fight where the Russians had superiority. I mean, what were you thinking, right? How could you do that? A total wow moment. Um, the problem is the French player did not know that the Russians were there in force. He knew that they were up here on the high ground. He didn't know exactly how many, and he certainly didn't know that he was outnumbered. I think, in fact, in the post battle, he said he assumed he was fighting a brigade of roughly equal strength. Therefore, he figured he at least had even odds, which of course he didn't, because the Russians, even if they were in equal strength, had high ground advantage, so the odds are not technically equal. Steelstone says if this is a military training simulation, then supplies should be represented. And I'm really happy to hear you say that because, again, that is the entire purpose of the 15-state system, which is to represent supplies and their consumption over time. So, so after 20 minutes of battle, a unit would go to its exhausted state, which is this, and then it's going to take a supply wagon to restore it to its original state. And every 5 minutes of combat, it's going to go down a state. So again, these are not super soldiers. They don't have unlimited ammunition. They can't just grind their way across the battlefield. They actually have to pay attention to the supply situation. And as supplies are consumed, it changes the calculus of the battle. Eventually, both sides will end up in a situation where their supplies are pretty much exhausted. It's also particularly important with artillery because if I start firing at long range and I'm not really doing much, I'm burning through my ammunition. And do I really want to keep taking long range pot shots at the enemy to burn through my ammunition with very little chances of doing major damage? Maybe I want to slow down or stop. And eventually you get to the situation where you're out of ammo and you can't fire and you have to resupply. The guns also go down states. Here you have 3 guns Here you have 3 guns out of ammo. Here you have 2 guns. And here you have, oh, that would be 16, 1 gun with full ammo load. So we also keep track of that as far as the artillery goes. But getting back to the overall assessment, I think the French did really well. And one of the things that they did really well on was they supported each other. Both the French and the Russians did this. So when the 2nd Brigade commander saw that his friend needed help, he did not begrudge that friend his support, and he sent everything he possibly could while still fighting to accomplish his mission over here, which is kind of cool. I don't know if that's really the right economy of force or if it's even the right decision, but that is the decision that was made, and it's understandable. There were no bad decisions made based on the information that they had. The only decision that we could critique is the French commander's decision to go ahead and occupy this position with the knowledge that Russians were present on the high ground. But again, it's understandable because he thought that he outnumbered them, and he just expected that French superiority or Elan would win the day, and that's quite understandable. Quite understandable. And of course, his mission was to come up here and capture this bridge. And you can't capture that bridge defending on this side of the river. It's not going to happen. You have to push across. Now, he might have come across over here. He might have gone around this way. There were other decisions that he could have made. In fact, he could have forded the creek over here because it really wasn't a river. It's just kind of a stream. So this is in no way an obstacle to movement. So he could have just, kind of gone around. When he did realize he was facing a significant force, he did correctly say, we're going to maneuver over here and push him on the flank, which he did. It did not work out for him because the Russians had these flanking units that came down to block that. But if not for that, he might have been successful. And he did hit the Russians hard in the first 5 minutes of battle. And that's also because the Russians didn't have their whole line online. They had a reserve. But I think that was also an intelligent decision on the part of the Russians. So both sides played very intelligently, played very well, and I think that makes this one of the better Kriegsspiel battles that we've had, even though it was tiny. It was just 4 players, 2 commanders on each side, 3 umpires, myself and 2 assistants, and I think it went really, really well. I was very pleased with the result. I was very pleased with the decisions made by the commanders, and I was extremely pleased with how the supply situation affected the battle and helped kind of create this ebb and flow. I think it worked really, really, really well. Anyway, if you want to watch the original battle in its totality, it's a little over 3 hours duration, which is also a pretty good duration. I'm going to see if I can find that link to it, and I will post it for you if I can pull it up. I have to go to my library, and I think this is very pleased with the decisions made. Nope, that's the live stream. Let's see. 15 state. Here we go. Here we go. Here it is. Artillery, as will actually both. There we go. We'll close that down. I'll put the link to the one in here. Okay. And there's the link to the YouTube now, to the original battle. Mind Bomb, good to see you. You're saying you wish you could play. How can I get into a game? And you're just a little older than me and you really want to check this out. Well, Mind Bomb, welcome, of course, to the show. We're about to wrap up, but here's all you need to do. I'm going to get you a Discord invite. I hope you have Discord. If not, you might want to get it because it's free and easy to use. And I'm going to send you an invitation to our Discord. In fact, we can pull that off the website, can't we? So let's do that. Our website is called Kriegsspiel.org. And I'll post that as well since we're here. And this here is the invitation to our Discord. And absolutely anybody and everybody is welcome. There's no membership fees or dues or anything like that. And you just click that link right there. You'll join the Discord, let people know you're interested in a game. We play games every Saturday. We have a huge Civil War game coming up next Saturday, which is, I think, November 20. Let me see what the date of that is. November 20th. Yep, November 20th. We have a big, huge game coming up. And then we, again, every Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific, we have a big game. Or is that 8 a.m. Pacific? I can't remember. I think it's 8 a.m. Pacific. Every Saturday we have a big game. And there are games that take place during the week. So we have membership from all around the world. So games tend to be more in the morning in United States time because that's already afternoon or evening back in Europe. And so the mornings in the United States are kind of the time when we can kind of get everybody in there playing. But I want everybody to have the opportunity to come on in and play. It's a lot of fun. It doesn't require that you know the rules. The umpires handle all the rules for you. You simply have to be familiar with the tactics. And again, once you're in there, you're going to be hooked on this. And tell your friends, tell your friends and other war gamers, your wargaming community about this. Let them come on in and play with you as well. We have a lot of great stuff going on, a lot of cool stuff coming up, new campaigns where losses and stuff carry over, all kinds of fun stuff. So give us a try, and I think you'll enjoy it. So, all right, we got you, Mind Bomb. Kadwala is the name on Discord. We got it. I want to say hi to Potbellied Slim. Peter, thank you. We're about to wrap up. I wish you were here, though, because you helped me umpire this. It would have been really super cool to have your take on it, but we are wrapping up. Um, but yes, Peter, at some point, yes, let's absolutely hop on and talk. And yes, we do. Was today's battle that we recap. Mind Bomb was Napoleonic, but we also do Civil War as well. So we do both of those. All right, I'm going to wrap up here, but I want to thank you all for being here. I appreciate everyone, and we